Good evening. Hello. My name's Jacqueline Dutton and I'm Associate Dean of Engagement in the Faculty of Arts. On behalf of the Dean of the Faculty of Arts, Professor Mark Considine, it's my great pleasure to welcome you all to the annual Walter Mangold Lecture at the University of Melbourne. It's a moment when we really enjoy gathering together people who have a passion for languages, and we can all think and talk more about issues that are of fundamental importance for peace, communication and understanding of other cultures. I would like to acknowledge the traditional owners on the land on which this event is taking place, the land of the Wurundjeri people, and we pay respects to their elders past and present and their families. We are honoured to welcome Mr. Daniel Reckman of the Walter Mangold Trust Fund and Mr. David Abraham of the Cass Foundation, along with several trustees, to the Faculty of Arts this evening. Since 2008, we've enjoyed generous support of the Walter Mangold Trust Fund to invite distinguished visiting fellows to the university from China, the US, Japan, Taiwan, and now Indonesia. The selection of the Walter Mangold Visiting Fellow is based on his or her contribution to language learning and intercultural communication with the principal aims of promoting peace and understanding between peoples of the world. For more information on the Walter Mangold Trust Fund and its valuable work in promoting languages and intercultural communication, please do read the brochure that we have produced for this occasion. There's a lot of information about the Walter Mangold Trust Fund and the other programs that they fund, which are related to languages and intercultural understanding. We sincerely thank the Walter Mangold Trust Fund for their generosity in supporting learning and teaching, research, student travel scholarships, and of course the Visiting Fellow program in the field of languages. I would also like to thank Dr. Edwin Jurians, Dr. Michael Ewing for their assistance in bringing our visiting fellow here from Indonesia. Their expertise in the field of Indonesian has been invaluable to be putting together this program and bringing together the specialists of Indonesian studies and those interested in Indonesian here tonight. They will be hosting our visiting fellow from Indonesia throughout his stay, and their contributions are very much appreciated by the Faculty of Arts and the Walter Mangold Trust Fund. I would also like to express my thanks to Professor Ki Pukong, who has facilitated the application for our visiting fellow to have honorary fellow status at the University of Melbourne in the Asia Institute, and that is a great honour to have such a distinguished visiting fellow in the Asia Institute here. Thanks also to Marg Sullivan, who has been incredibly dynamic in organising this event and organising our visiting fellows' stay here at Ormond College, which we also thank sincerely for their support. I'm delighted to now present our distinguished Walter Mangold Visiting Fellow for 2013, Indonesian scholar, internationally recognised author, journalist, photographer and social commentator, Dr. Seno Gumira Ajidarma. His work focuses on documenting everyday life and critiquing contemporary social, cultural and political conditions. In the context of Indonesia, this means constantly engaging with the multilingual and multicultural character of this nation. Dr. Gumira Ajidarma speaks English and Indonesian, as well as his ancestral language, Javanese, developing mutual understanding across languages and cultures, both within Indonesia and internationally, have been key elements of his work. Dr. Gumira Ajidarma has written several novels, both more than 10 collections of short stories and numerous essays. Both in his fiction and non-fiction, he has been a keen and courageous observer of sensitive socio-political issues, such as restrictions on the freedom of expression in Indonesia and military violence in East Timor. Dr. Gumira Ajidarma is known for the credo, "When journalism is silenced, Literature must speak. His writing has won several national and international awards, notably the 1997 Southeast Asian Writers' Award. Some of his work is available in English, so for those of you who don't read Indonesian like myself, we can have access to his prose and short stories. Dr. Gumira Ajidarma holds a PhD in literature from the University of Indonesia in Jakarta. He's currently a lecturer at in the postgraduate program of the Jakarta Institute of Art and various other universities in Jakarta. He is a fine ambassador for language learning and intercultural communication for peace and understanding, and especially relevant in situations of mistrust and conflict. His interests and experiences in developing connections between diverse peoples echo the ethos that is central to the mission of the Walter Mangold Trust Fund. Tonight, he will speak to us about the history, development, and socio-political contexts of various secret language codes in Indonesian literature. The title of his lecture is Communicating the Unspeakable, the Secret Codes of Indonesian Literature. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Seno Gumira Ajidarma.
Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, permit me to read this paper so we can finish this faster than, not longer than arranged. I'm afraid that I cannot finish this maybe long paper, so I read the abstract first. Scripts are the formalization of sounds, and in words, they become meaningful. Encoding, however, hides meaning just as the uncovering of a deadly event. 7th century spells inscribed in undecipherable stone tablets of the Sriwijaya kingdom and the encoding of the 20th century that was used to combat the silencing of journalism and the literature of opposition show that the phenomena of secrecy. How is it possible, faced with the canon of validity within knowledge, for secrecy to be employed to state a secret and to not state it? If invalidity always shadows validity, unstated secrets will always form a part of knowledge. Now I will read the complete paper. Communicating the Unspeakable, the Secret Codes of a Language of Opposition. An unreadable course. The oldest secret code in the prehistory of Indonesia is found in various stone tablets from the Sriwijaya kingdom in Sumatra. These include the stone tablets of the city, the Kapur, Kota Kapur, in the 8th century, in the 7th century, which are written in ancient Malay, or Melayu kuno, in Lit Palawa script. The translation is as follows. So before this inscription, you can see that there is Sumatra, the very left side on the map, and there is a small island called Bangka. So that is where the inscription found. So this is what written in there. Success. This is followed by a mantra that cannot be interpreted. Oh, powerful divinities, who are gathered together and are protecting the kingdom of Sriwijaya. Also you, Thunder Nuah, on all gods who start every mantra used as a curse. Whenever there is someone from the hinterland who is in this province who rebels, who cooperates with the rebels, who talks with the rebels, who listens to the words of the rebels, who is acquainted with the rebels, who is rebellious, who is insubordinate, who is disloyal to me, and those who are acknowledged as princes, let such people who commit such actions die through being struck with a curse. Let an expedition be sent immediately to fight against them under the guidance of Sriwijayan prince, and let them be punished along with their family and kin. Moreover, let all evil actions such as disturbing someone's peace, making someone sick, turning someone crazy, using mantras, using the poison from the upas tree, and the medicinal plants, marijuana, saramwat, love philtres, force one's wishes onto others, and so on. It is hoped that such actions are unsuccessful, and those who perform such wicked action are struck with curses. So, let them die from curses. Moreover, those who incite others to cause damage or damage the stone that has been placed here should also be punished immediately and die from a curse. Let murderers, rebels, and those who are insubordinate, those who are disloyal to me, let them die from a curse. Nonetheless, if people are respectful, loyal to me, and those who I appoint as princes, let their efforts and those of their family and kin be blessed. Through success, prosperity, health, freedom from disaster, and abundance in everything in their land. The year of 608 Saka, the first day of the half moon of Vaisakha, this is the only curse to be stated. Its inscription is taking place while the Sriwijaya army has just departed to attack the lands of Java for not bowing to Sriwijaya. So Java is the east side, yeah? East side from Sumatra. In the debate regarding the mantra curse that cannot be interpreted, George Schutz argues that based on the mantra that is included, that it is hoped that anyone who does something wicked is killed in the following text. It's not impossible that the mantra is written in a secret language that has its own phonetic rules or words that are deliberately changed and are more or less softened so that readers do not know and are guiltlessly free from its power. In many languages, oaths undergo such phonetic transformations. Unfortunately, there is a big possibility that the curse stated by the king of Sriwijaya will remain forever as a puzzle. Schutz's position is as follows. I myself prefer not to translate the part of the stone tablet in which the words are hard to decipher and have strange phonetics. Louis Charles Damay, in his opinion on Schutz's work, rejects the idea of a curse language as a construct. Based on a lengthy linguistic and philological analysis and through comparing terms from the curse language with other Austronesian languages, including Champa and Malagasy, he states that what is questioned is not an unknown Austronesian language, but rather a secret that doesn't need to be hidden. Damay, who is well known for his precision, remains cautious when he comes to a conclusion, leaving the door open for new approaches. I am writing a martial arts novel set in the same century, but I am an amateur in terms of philology and archaeology. It seems that a number of alternative narratives and speculations can be validated. These include, for example, first, the mantra might just be real and functional, but has never been proven because, second, almost all of the people who had been in front of the stone tablet would have been illiterate. And third, if they were capable of reading, they would have still had difficulty in reading the curse. Or fourth, the mantra was just a kind of bluff known to its maker that it would never function. But fifth, because it could never be proven to not function, it was deliberately made to be unreadable. Six, especially with the placement of words which are deliberately arranged so that they wouldn't mean anything at the time or in the future. And seven, that deliberate nonsensical orders makes it appear as a phonetic symptom that will remain forever uncovered because it is intended to be so. As such, it is enticing to imagine. 8. The writer of the mantra smiling as he compiled the letters like that which is read by scholars as 30 letters without any letters S, while the number of H is astonishing, and the diphthong I, which in other stone tablets only appears in Malay words, here it appears 9 times. Indeed, there is no historical fact that the inscriber of the sentences on the stone tablet was smiling, when he arrived at the nonsensical course, but who apparently wouldn't smile, at least in their hearts, even in the 7th century, even knowing that the 9th mantra was just a bluff, and that it may just have been compiled by a group of elite intellectuals who were laughing while formulating it. I can say honestly that I have had the idea that 10th, there maybe have been people who fell down and died even reading the text. Whatever the case, the difficulty in reading all of the sentences faced by the public gathered around the stone table, for example, which in the case of the Kapur city stone tablet in Bangka is 178 centimeter with a diameter of 15-30 centimeter depth, and a script that slants downwards must also be read while slanting one's head, like you can see here. Difficult to read. For the purpose of this discussion, it is sufficient to agree that, decoded or not decoded, first, that the secret language exists. Second, that language is held by those in power or the dominant social group. Third, Sriwijaya stone tablets are violent. That is, they are used for, or at least are intended to kill, even if they are deliberately made to be incomprehensible. From the letter to the underworld. The story of letter lettering continues with Javanese scripts. Ancient Malay written in Palawa script is also found in rare stone tablets. There are only a few hundred lines that are found in Sumatra and Java. A large number of stone tablets are written in Sanskrit, which still had a strong influence on ancient Javanese. The oldest of the stone tablets is the Sukabumi stone tablet, which dates to the 25 March 804 in the Christian calendar. Ancient Javanese, based on Lontar manuscripts, continued to develop in Java until the 15th century. Middle Javanese and New Javanese came after Ancient Javanese, but the presence of the three of them should not be seen sequentially. In the 16th century, Ancient Javanese, as appears in the Kakawin literature written in Bali, appeared alongside Middle Javanese as used in the Kidung literature in Bali. New Javanese was found in works regarding Islam. Putting to the side the complex discussion regarding the relationship between the three kinds of Javanese, it can be stated that New Javanese was usually used as the language that was used in Javanese literature in the 18th century to the beginning of the 19th century in Javanese poetry, and as the spoken languages of Yogyakarta and Surakarta now. In Javanese historiography, the birth of the Dentawianjana script, popularly known as the Javanese Hana Caraka, is associated with the legend as outlined below. Before I read this, I have to say I'm very sorry that this time is before supper. A young man called Ajisaka, who lived on the island of Majeti, had two loyal servants, Dora and Sembada. One day, he invited Dora out on an adventure. He asked Sembada to stay and not give the kris to anyone, except for himself, Sembada promised. At the same time, in the land of Medang Kemulan, ruled by the king Dewata Cengkar, a cook accidentally cut off his finger, and it ended up in the king's food. The king found his food exceptionally delicious and asked his vizier to find out what he had eaten. Upon learning that he had eaten human meat, the king immediately demanded that he be served human meat every day. Of course, he demanded that it was his own people who would be killed. Since then, his character began to change and he became cruel and tortuous. The land became quiet because every day someone was eaten and the people ran away beyond the borders. It was at the time that Ajisaka, accompanied by Dora, arrived in Medang Kemulan. Of course, he found it strange to see that there were almost no people. The king's vizier informed him, and then Ajisaka offered for him to become an offering. The vizier and Dewata Cengkar were surprised. Why Ajisaka, who was handsome and still young, was prepared to do this. So, Ajisaka stated that all he asked for in return was land as big as the size of his headdress. The king agreed. Ajisaka took off his headdress and asked Dewata to measure some land. It turned out, however, that the headdress, as it unrolled, was very broad. So broad that the king ended up at the edge of a cliff. Ajisaka ripped the clothes, and King Dewata Cengkar fell into the sea, turning into a white crocodile. The story goes that Ajisaka immediately became the king of Mendangkamulan, and he immediately requested Dora to go and take his grace. Upon arriving at Majete Island, Sembada greeted Dora. And the two servants of Ajisaka gave each other their news. But upon finding out the reason for Dora's visit, Sembada said that he could not give the grace to her if it was not Ajisaka himself who took it. To him, I think. Dora, however, stated that he couldn't return without the grace as Ajisaka had ordered. And so the two fought, battled, and because both were as strong as the other, they would kill each other. Even finding out of their deaths, Ajisaka was mournful and commemorated the event through creating 20 letters, which became known as follows. We can see, this is 5 each, 20 letters. Now, this is story continues. Similarly, with Latins A, B, C, and Arabs Alif, Ba, Ta, whose letters function to indicate sound only and not definitively give meaning to a narrative, so does the Javanese letters of Hana Caraka. In reality, it is not a vague process from ancient Javanese to New Javanese in which it is obligatory to study these letters, but rather a fictive story that is adapted. So much so that it is a part of primary school textbook, complete with drawings as shown above. Whatever the case, the story about Ajisaka shows, if letters can be agreed upon as being a representation of high culture, how culture can be interpreted as having to come from a deadly and violent event. In contrast to the later letters of the Sriwijaya stone tablets, which come from the clearly determined origins, that is, there were rebels and conspiracy of rebels who were the enemies of the state in a historical context. In the case of the Ajisaka legend, the social historical moment which determined the birth of such a legend remains a historical mystery. Nonetheless, as a narrative and as a literary statement, the possibility for using it in an interpretation of meaning has never and never needs to be closed. For the moment, in the context of a legend, it can be stated that the letters are born from a violent event. That is, they become violent letters. There is also the textbook Layang Hana Caraka, from which I have already taken drawings, which is used by teachers to tell students about the letters. The book is well known to whoever did their primary school in Yogyakarta or Surakarta without having to rely on any skill in writing the actual letters. Based on the ability to tell a story about Dora and Sembada who killed each other, the sounds of this letter, indeed only their sounds, are easier to memorize because of their meaning. In the life of the Javanese language in Yogyakarta, it immediately becomes easier to make use of the 20 sounds of the aforementioned letters as reference for the encoding of language as follows. The first line is paired with the third line. The second line is matched with the fourth line, just as is shown in this picture. Dagadu is a producer of popular souvenirs from Yogyakarta. If you've been there as tourists, you may find the t-shirts. The name Dagadu is an encoding of the word matamu, means your eyes. a swear word which is used to indicate familiarity. The reference above was found in a booklet from 2001, which only could form if it was seen through a mirror. So I have to make something with technology to show this. This was an indication of respect to the secret code of Basa Walian, back to front language, which became the symbol of its success. Using the same system, a word such as Australia will be encoded in the following way. So this is how it sounds. One with the first with the third, the two, the second with the fourth. So this is, you can practice by yourself. Yeah. A, it's, I have to sound it like an Indonesian. Yeah. A is ha, which is encoded as pa. Us is hus, which is encoded as pup, not pap. T is ta, which is encoded as ga, which becomes ji. Ra is encoded as ya, so tra is encoded as gya. Li is encoded as ngi. A is ha, which is encoded as pa. So Australia is pa pup gya ngi pa. So this is the science as well. In case of Melbourne, because the reference for encoding is based on pronunciation rather than spelling, the word Melbourne sounds like Melbourne to Javanese ears, so Melbourne doesn't become Deng So Poide, as would be indicated by its letter, but rather Deng Sayat, Melbourne, Deng Sayat. Even if this encoding is performed correctly, it won't immediately be recognized through speaking it with a native speaker, because communicating through this back-to-front language is only normal in the context of the language and idioms of popular Javanese. In turn, the word dap can be used for mas in a particular Javanese idiom, even if users are not aware of its origins, as coming from an encoded form of back-to-front language. So, those who still use it as a means of secret communication perform a sophisticated complication. But, but when that is sufficiently difficult for its code to be cracked, the word bapa, father, for example, is well known in its encoded form as sahan, pronounced sahan, and as such will go through a secondary process of encoding as hasan. Thus, in turn, has become well known, so it has gone through a third level of encoding to become hadasadan, through the addition of the sound of dead letters. This third level of encoding is just a child's game. But keeping in mind the two previous layers of encoding, it is almost impossible for those who are not familiar with this encoded language. Another name for Basa Walian, back to front language again, is Basa Dangil, an encoding from the word maling, meaning to steal. This indicates it is an effort to cover up a plan that needs to be kept secret. I admit to not knowing the historical facts, but linguistically, it is not impossible that the term Basa Dangil is a trace that shows a path towards the underworld, a peripheral world which relies on secrecy. If it is said that New Javanese was known in the 16th century and became a common language in the 18th century, the presence of an underworld at that time cannot be separated from a language of secret communication, cannot be supposed to be outside of the 20 sounds of the Javanese letters. If it is still known as a language of thieves in the 20th century, it can be interpreted as not being a metaphor, but rather indicating a mysterious group who were marginalized, distanced, and clearly othered. Comparing that symptom, that Basa Dangil is a language of thieves that serves to hide something, its purpose is not only that of secrecy, but also to indicate the identity of its user, so that it barely exists in this world. As such, the secret code of Basa Walian serves to show something. Basa Walian serves to show something. It is a representation of the politics of identity. to show oneself and one's group as having a different identity, particularly in comparison with the dominant group, which uses a normative and fixed language. A chart from the same secret code, but with a different ideology, shows the following binary opposition. See, the same code, different ideology. Even though Bosawalian is used to show one's identity, its element of secrecy remains. It is only known by those who truly master it and at least understand certain idioms. In its capacity as a youth language, its secrecy involves typical topics, such as, so if a girl walks past, two boys will talk about her. Paru salek, boho nyuti, poyaleski, sandi tangan. In English, very cute. Who is she? Don't know. Her father is very mean. So some words from the encoded language have come into everyday Javanese. These include dap formas, a familiar term for addressing a man of equal stature, dalat, to eat, lotse, to drink, cingip mutik, baru mane, satsilat, not a good person, pemat, crazy, and gunyal sejan, threshold driver. In Jakarta, there are warungs, stalls with banners that state Jape Mete, or one of us, which is a well-known idiom without having to master the method of encoding. The symptom of language is not considered interesting for a linguistic study or a study of Javanese culture, especially amongst Javanese and Indonesian linguists and philologists. It is possible that this language is not considered to be burdened with the meaning of adiluhung, or super high, and its element of secrecy is not considered important or useful. If one considers researchers from outside of Java and Indonesia, amongst very few is Henri Chambert-Loir, who has studied the Bosawalian of Yogyakarta, Semarang, Malang, and also the Pro-Camp of Jakarta. His research is performed in looking at the secret languages of other parts of the world, from France to Malaysia. After doing much research and uncovering much, Chambert-Loir writes that, I summarize this, like this, that encoded languages always function in the same way, that is to create a sense of solidarity amongst those who speak the same language. Such codes, Rattling, Javanese, encoded language, seemingly draw a border between those who know the language and those who don't. So I noted that, first, secrets remain. Second, secrets are held by the people who differentiate themselves from others, as well as those who differentiate them, or a group that is marginalized. Third, letters whose sound become an instrument for encoding are turned into a legend in which they are imagined as coming from a violent event. Now, secret codes in opposition of censorship. On the 12th November 1991, an event known in Indonesian as the Incident Dili happened. For the international media, it was known as the Santa Cruz Massacre. The Indonesian media stated that there were 19 victims as a result of the military being forced to open fire. Sirastari, a journalist from Jakarta, went to Dili and was able to conduct interviews with eyewitnesses and to write a report based on the interviews. Jakarta was able to write the two perspectives. The result of this was the reorganization of Jakarta by the military. Part of this was that I was released from my job as an executive editor. No hard feeling. Since then, even though my position was only marginal, I became a small part of the history of East Timor, which after its independence became Timor-Leste. Meaning, since I was released from my job, in 2 to 3 years afterwards, I wrote short stories based on and referencing the raw materials of the Dili incident without mentioning everything about East Timor, except what could be mentioned as a secret code. Stating something while keeping something covered up was a new art for me, as someone who for many years previously had tried to separate technique, style, and ethical principles between the writing of journalism and fiction. I was not avoiding the fact that in practice, these two disciplines, whether deliberately or not, are intertwined. For example, in the writing of a journalistic report in a fictional manner, and on the other hand, writing fiction through borrowing techniques of journalism. However, I had never written without the pretension of literature, except in this case, when I consciously opposed this act of censorship and silencing. So, in the stories about East Timor, which could not be written by mentioning the name East Timor, I used 4 codes of expression. First, always involving the killing of unarmed civilians. Second, using Portuguese names. Anyway, I find it difficult to tell the difference with Spanish names. Third, there was a synchronization of timing with the events on East Timor. Fourth, when mentioning names as cities or East Timor, I used Boso Walian. For those who know the Boso Walian, the short story, The Mystery of Ningi City, will be read as The Mystery of Dili City, the capital of Timor-Leste now. In my novel, Jazz Perfume and the Incident, which is already full with various techniques of camouflage, at the time of uncovering the reports, the text appeared in their original form, that's in English, as follows. So I just choose some with very light violence, because, like this one, I was subjected to rigorous interrogations and thought I was not beaten. I was threatened with a gun if I didn't speak the truth, and the pistol was always on the table. They accused me of being an organizer of the youth, and particularly of my children, who, according to them, I had sent to Nyuha, Chanyaiga, and Ngipsat with the aim of informing the world of, censored by the author, activities in Git-Git. Another sample. For 2 of the 6 days that he was detained, he was denied food. When he cried out of hunger, he was thrown on the floor by, censored by the author, who then trod on his neck. The 26-year-old unmarried woman was reportedly beaten, kicked, stripped naked, and tortured with electric shocks and repeatedly sexually abused by, censored by the author, during her 5 days in detention. As is read, even in a secret code, Git-Git for Tim-Tim, East Timor, Nyuhal for Kupang, Ningi for Dili, Chanyaiga for Jakarta, Ngipsot for Lisbon, and Sapu-Nyapu for Baukau. In stressful situation, there are limits on expression so much so that I wrote, censored by the author. Meaning that, first, I could not state something, but it was still meaningful. Second, that there was something that could not be stated. Indeed, I was also aware of literary effect and the irony of a writer who was forced to censor his own text, but with the proviso that a certain group had already done it, which I would convey. I don't have any attention to draw a connection between the violent legend regarding the birth of the Javanese alphabet with the secret code of Bahasa Walian that is used to cover up violent events, apart only from showing that the two of them and their function as letters are connected to violent narratives. It is not that the script is true, but rather secrecy involves a violent event, which in historical legends that are not based on historical facts, violence is considered as a text from one era to the next. So, in the context of new Javanese literature, not Indonesian literature, the possession of a babat can function as a nubuat in the form of history of the future, in the context of the political conflict at the time of writing. A device known as semu, quasi-apparent mock, is formulated to both cover up and simultaneously uncover an event. As such, literature finds its function as something which has a quality of quasiness. In Japanese, the term is pasemon. this. The word semu in its many usage indicates the merely glimpse perceptible dimension of the concealed. Semu is a subtle sign which points to something other than which it is, but not necessarily to something else. Pasemon, a nominal cognate of semu, can mean parable allegory, or the hint of a symbol, that is something which indicates something more than itself, something which invites a reading or interpretation by consciousness, participating in a common epistemological universe. A pasemon is a kind of epistemologically constructed mask which reveals insofar as it appears to conceal. So I think it's nearly the end of the paper. So that story is not a past story. I still do it now. Yeah. So this is one of, it is clear that what I have done is not as complex or refined as Japanese writers. Moreover, it might be considered provocative in inviting deconstruction. But the spirit of resisting, silencing, and not the writing of literature might be the answer. This is not just a pre-Reformasi, 1998 story. Last year, in the context of Papua, I still needed to use a combination of Bosowalian to disguise an SMS as follows. I'm still in Hong Yep. Several Hongibi and Sidos know exactly who did the shooting in Gidinya. A former Dapdepsya-nya Hong Yep apparently has the names of the killers. They are self-censored by the author, who disguised themselves as Sagangrot Si Gusu, Edi-Didinya Labi. Their uniform was the same as the Sagangrot. He had a different weapon. This is A1 information, but one must be careful. We wait for someone brief enough to state who they are. Don't believe the words of those in power. I don't know who sent the SMS, but I thought that the information should be disguised in a secret code, so that whoever has mastered the code can decipher it, while those who speak Papuan, this is a case of Papua, might be confused. Where is the report? Because it is not any kind of Papuan. The code was then broken through social media. Everybody knows this. Except, of course, what I kept secret through the code, self-censored by the author, because I don't want to be disappeared. At this point, it can be concluded that, first, secrecy is held by the oppressed. Second, violent secrecy in a pragmatic manner is validated as a part of literature that doesn't function in a pragmatic manner. Third, information which is hidden is already known in the clandestine world as well as in open opposition. So this is the last part, short. Yeah. The aspect of secrecy becomes interesting in academic discourse because of its frontal opposition towards knowledge turns out to be a part of knowledge itself. This issue of validity is connected with the way in which knowledge becomes available. Secrets not only ask the question of what ideological uses revelation is put to, but what is the status found in the politics of secrets, and does this meaning challenge what is knowledge in general? The text, this is the discourse that can be derived from two kinds of secrets. First, that which refers to the aporia of legitimacy at the center of claims and the disciplinary authority. Second, that which will always be present without ever knowing a secret. In the case of the secret code behind these violent letters, the two elements form a part of this literature of opposition. Thank you.